I need you to see that I'm not weak. He said it 3 times in 10 minutes, each repetition louder than the last. The desperation in his voice told me everything. This was not strength speaking, this was fear wearing a mask. Observe the pattern carefully. Those who possess genuine power rarely announce it. They do not raise their voices to prove dominance. They do not threaten, posture, or perform. The truly formidable move through the world with quiet certainty, their strength evident in restraint rather than display. When someone screams their toughness into your face, what you are witnessing is not confidence, but its opposite. A profound insecurity so terrifying that it must be buried under layers of aggression. The mask of fake toughness serves a specific psychological function. It protects the wearer from confronting their own perceived inadequacy. Every chest-pounding declaration, every aggressive display, every forced confrontation is an attempt to convince the self more than the audience. The internal dialogue runs like this. If I can make them afraid, if I can make them submit, then perhaps I am not as powerless as I secretly believe. The performance becomes compulsive because the underlying wound never heals. You encounter this dynamic everywhere once you learn to recognize it. The manager who rules through intimidation fears being exposed as incompetent. The athlete who taunts opponents before the game doubts their own preparation. The colleague who constantly interrupts meetings desperately needs validation they cannot generate internally. The relationship partner who controls through rage is terrified of abandonment. These patterns repeat across contexts because the mechanism is universal. Understanding this reality gives you an extraordinary advantage. When someone attempts to dominate you through aggression, you are witnessing their vulnerability on full display. They have handed you a map to their weakness. Your response determines whether you seize this advantage or surrender it. Most people surrender it immediately through emotional reaction. They meet anger with anger, threat with threat, aggression with aggression. In doing so, they give the aggressor exactly what they need. Confirmation that the performance works, that the mask successfully conceals the weakness beneath. The intelligent response requires discipline most people do not possess. It requires you to override every instinct screaming at you to defend, to retaliate, to prove your own strength. It requires you to see past the immediate provocation to the larger game being played. And it requires you to value victory over the temporary satisfaction of emotional expression. If you can cultivate this discipline, you become nearly untouchable. Subscribe to this channel so you won't miss the next revelation that could save you from repeating the same self-sabotage. Silence is the first and most powerful weapon in this arsenal. When faced with aggressive provocation, your immediate instinct is to respond, to explain, to justify, to defend. Resist this completely. Silence unnerves the aggressor in ways that words cannot. It refuses to give them the reaction they desperately need. It forces them to continue their performance without the fuel of your engagement, and eventually the performance collapses under its own weight. Silence also protects you from saying something in the heat of the moment that you will regret later. Words spoken in anger are weapons that wound indiscriminately, often harming you more than your target. The person who masters silence masters the situation. They observe, they assess, they wait. And while the aggressor exhausts themselves in empty display, the silent observer gathers information and identifies openings. Patience follows naturally from silence. The aggressive personality operates on a specific timeline. They need immediate results, immediate submission, immediate validation. This urgency is itself a weakness you can exploit. If this insight feels like a lifeline, let this channel be the quiet voice that keeps you grounded. Subscribe and keep the silence on your side. By refusing to operate on their timeline, by deliberately slowing the pace of engagement, you drain their momentum. A patient response is not a passive response. It is a strategic choice to engage when conditions favor you, rather than when conditions favor them. In therapeutic settings, this principle manifests as the decision to address a difficult topic when the client is regulated rather than dysregulated. In organizational contexts, it appears as the choice to have a crucial conversation after emotions have cooled rather than in the moment of conflict. In competitive environments, it is the athlete who waits for their opponent to make the first mistake rather than forcing an early confrontation. Timing transforms patience from passive waiting into active strategy. There is a moment in every conflict when the aggressor has overextended themselves, when their energy flags, when their attention wavers. This is the moment to act. Not before, when they are primed and ready. Not after, when they have recovered. But precisely at the point of maximum vulnerability. Recognizing this moment requires observation and experience. It requires you to study the rhythms of conflict rather than simply reacting to them. The manager who intervenes in a team dispute waits until all parties have exhausted their initial positions and become receptive to resolution. The negotiator allows the other side to talk themselves into revealing their true priorities before making their own position clear. The educator addresses disruptive behavior after the student has experienced the natural consequences of their actions, rather than immediately imposing external punishment. Non-reaction is distinct from silence. Silence is the absence of words. Non-reaction is the absence of emotional investment. You can speak while maintaining non-reaction, but your words carry no anger, no fear, no defensiveness. They are neutral observations, factual statements, questions designed to reveal rather than to wound. Non-reaction communicates something deeply threatening to the aggressive personality. You do not care enough about their opinion to be moved by it. Their approval or disapproval, their threats or promises, their judgments or demands, none of it touches you. This is the ultimate rejection of their power play. They cannot control what they cannot affect. The therapist who remains non-reactive to a client's provocations creates safety for genuine exploration. The leader who responds to criticism without defensiveness models the behavior they want to see in their organization. The individual who refuses to be baited into an emotional reaction in their personal relationships establishes boundaries without needing to enforce them through conflict. Detachment completes the psychological stance that makes these strategies possible. Detachment does not mean you do not care about outcomes. It means you do not allow your sense of self-worth to depend on any particular outcome. When your identity is not on the line, you can assess situations clearly. You can recognize when engagement serves your interests and when it does not. You can choose your battles based on strategic value rather than emotional impulse. Detachment allows you to observe your own emotional reactions without being controlled by them. You notice the anger rising, the fear tightening your chest, the pride demanding that you prove yourself, and you acknowledge these feelings while declining to act on them. This is the skill that separates the reactive from the strategic, the amateur from the master. Strategic withdrawal is often mistaken for cowardice. It is not. It is the recognition that some battles cannot be won and some victories are not worth their cost. When you are dealing with someone whose identity depends on conflict, withdrawal removes the battlefield entirely. They cannot defeat an opponent who refuses to fight. This frustrates them more deeply than any counterattack could. In organizational settings, strategic withdrawal might mean choosing not to engage with a toxic colleague's provocations, allowing them to exhaust themselves while you focus on productive work. In personal relationships, it might mean recognizing that certain conflicts are fundamentally unresolvable and choosing to disengage rather than continuing a destructive pattern. In competitive contexts, it might mean conceding minor points to preserve resources for more important battles. The consequences of failing to employ these strategies are severe and cumulative. Every time you react emotionally to provocation, you reinforce the aggressor's belief that their tactics work. You train them to continue the behavior. You also damage your own position in ways that compound over time. Emotional reactions cloud judgment. They lead to impulsive decisions that must later be reversed or defended. They create a record of instability that others will remember and use against you. They drain your energy and attention from more productive pursuits. Consider the professional who responds to every criticism with defensiveness. Over time, colleagues learn to avoid giving them honest feedback. This isolation prevents growth and advancement while the person remains convinced they are being unfairly treated. Or consider the relationship where one partner uses anger to control conflict. The other partner learns to appease rather than to communicate honestly, and the relationship slowly dies under the weight of accumulated resentment. Or observe the team where the loudest voice always wins. Quieter members disengage, and the organization loses access to their insights and contributions. Each emotional reaction is a small surrender of power. Each time you allow someone else's aggression to determine your response, you have given them control over your behavior. The cumulative effect is devastating. You become reactive rather than intentional. You operate from a position of weakness, even when circumstances favor you. You develop patterns of behavior that serve others' interests rather than your own. The alternative requires conscious effort and sustained discipline. It requires you to build new habits of response that override deeply ingrained instincts. It requires you to tolerate the discomfort of non-reaction when every fiber of your being screams for release. It requires you to trust the process even when immediate results are not visible. But the payoff is extraordinary. The person who masters these strategies becomes formidable not through aggression, but through composure. They accumulate advantages while others dissipate their energy in useless conflict. They see opportunities that emotional reactivity would obscure. They build reputations for stability and good judgment that open doors no amount of aggressive self-promotion could access. They live with less stress because they refuse to participate in drama that serves no purpose. They form stronger relationships because their responses are measured and intentional rather than impulsive and defensive. This is not about suppressing emotion or becoming cold. It is about choosing when and how to express emotion in ways that serve your interests rather than sabotaging them. It is about recognizing that genuine strength is quiet and needs no announcement. It is about understanding that the person shouting their dominance is offering you their weakness if you are skilled enough to accept it. The cost of emotional surrender is paid in opportunities lost, relationships damaged, and potential unrealized. Every time you react rather than respond, you move further from the person you could become. Every time you feed someone else's need for conflict, you diminish yourself. The world will keep rewarding the loud and reckless. Your choice to stay here is the first step toward mastering the quiet power you deserve. Subscribe before the noise swallows you again. The truly strong do not announce their strength. They simply move through the world with the quiet certainty that comes from knowing they have nothing to prove.